Okay, coming up in this episode, we're going to talk about the Peterborough Film Office. What is that? We're going to talk about food waste. And our special guest is Stephen Pettican from the Light Project Peterborough. So we'll sort of delve deeply into the work that charity does to help with the rough sleepers and the whole issue of homelessness in the city.
Yeah, I've been there many times, and it will be interesting to speak to him about that, whether it's an issue that's getting worse, getting better, what can be done about it. He'll have a lot to say.
He's an interesting man,
great
Steve,
talker, so yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
The other thing we're going to do is we're going to have a bonus guest. We're going to be hearing from our MP, Andrew Pakes, who I had a few words with regarding, the Peterborough Chinese community. Faustina, who's a force of nature. She's like the person who sort of spearheads the Chinese community in Peterborough, and they recently celebrated the New Year's, their Chinese New Year celebrations. So Andrew's going to mention his thoughts on that and also talk about the Lido.
Yes.
So we'll touch on, when we were last doing the podcast, we talked quite a bit, didn't we, about the chances of the Lido being mothballed. And thank goodness it's not going to be mothballed. But we'll touch on that in a little while too. But where shall we start this time round?
Shall we start with the Film Office?
Yes.
Which I've touched on your morning show a few times. And I did actually do a podcast with the leader of Peterborough City Council, Councillor Dennis Jones, and his wife Alison the other day. We're going to get the Film Office in Peterborough. What that means is it's an administrational office, if you like, for dealing with any production companies who want to come and film in Peterborough. Now, we have had this before. We have had productions. You'll remember Del Singh, who came on our podcast last year, who spoke about when Octopussy was filmed in Peterborough and the Valley Railway. GoldenEye was also filmed here, some of the scenes from that. But essentially what we've never had is one office overseeing the administration of it, i.e. where you can find out what sites are available in Peterborough, what licences are needed, what insurance is needed, how much parking there will be at these sites, what utilities are there, how close hotels, catering, many things that will be part of it. And it needed to be set up. We do get inquiries, and I can see you want to ask me something.
I've got my hand up to ask a question. So the two questions that jump out, aside from sounding really exciting, there's loads of cool locations in Peterborough. I'd like to get a bit of info on, really, is there a demand? And the second part of the question would be, how's this going to be funded? We've got a council who are struggling to balance the budget. So is this going to cost the taxpayer to set up?
Well, let me answer the second one first. No, it isn't. I'm going to be driving it, quite frankly, myself. Jamie Fenton at the council, who is also responsible for leisure at the council and oversees it, and a guy called Tom Dexter, who at the moment is working voluntarily, but is a film buff, film expert with loads of connections. So at the moment, we will be doing it as well as our day jobs, if you like. And I've spoken many times about the sort of things I do. Jamie has lots of things as well. I realise that is an extra commitment, but we've set up a section within the Peterborough City Council website, so we won't be charging any more for that. We won't be paying any more for a separate website. The social media will be run from within, our existing comms team. We will rely on the expertise of people who are already at the council, i.e. people who deal with parking, environment, leisure, etc.
Okay, so the short answer is no.
No, sorry, I that was a very.
So the next bit of it is then, what is it about Peterborough that's going to make it appealing as a city, as a destination to people that want to make movies or TV shows?
Well, I think we've mentioned before that Peterborough has a lot of hidden gems, if you like. And we know about them, but the wider society doesn't. And we know that there is the Embankment and Ferry Meadows and the Cathedral and many other places. Film companies have traditionally relied a lot on London, as you might get, or bigger cities. And essentially, I think what it comes down to is we're trying to promote Peterborough as a tourist destination, but also as somewhere where production companies might not have thought of before and might be able to carry out their filming, but possibly at a lower cost than they would do if they wanted to go to the big cities.
So could this eventually then be a revenue earner for the city?
Well, that's the hope. The hope is that it will be a revenue owner. It will generate revenue for the city, for the council itself, of course. And of course, we're also talking about sites that aren't council owned as well, but where we will sort of showcase, almost signpost production companies towards them. If we don't own them, then we'll say, okay, we've got these ones, but also there might be this venue here as well.
Burley House in Stamford jumps out to me. It's a place they're always filming now.
Yeah, they are, and it's for obvious reasons. It's beautiful. There's lots of parking, lots of green scenery, so you can adapt it. But we don't really have it so much in Peterborough. I mean, I was looking at a list of filming, and really we have to go back to Atonement was one, but that wasn't even in Peterborough. That was just sort of the Gedney area, which obviously is quite a few miles away. So I think you asked, is there a demand for it? I think we have to make that demand for it. I think we have to make ourselves known. Are we going out to there's a sort of film expo in I think it's April or May, where local authorities and from across the country will be going and trying to showcase what they have.
So you need to put together a proposal, a kind of list of brilliant places in Peterborough and how great we would be and how welcoming we would be. Yeah. And we've almost got to go and sell our film office to expos like that.
We do. And, it's you can make the jokes about it. The story's gone on the PT today, and already there are jokes about it. Steve Crouch, who some people will know, he's a very funny commenter, and he's said things like, "Oh, well, they could film Night of the Living Dead on Broadway on a Saturday night," and things like that. And The Shining could be an eerie abandoned hotel. I can't think of any of them in Peterborough. We all know the jokes and stuff, but in the end, and he's being light-hearted about that. I would like it to be that we actually do film that, and not just films, by the way. Can I just point out things like Netflix productions, a lot of YouTube influencers who make documentaries, etc. They pay good money for that as well. We are open to. You can find the section on the Peterborough City Council website now for Film Office Peterborough, and we're there. We're there for people to find out more.
Listen, there's absolutely no reason, in my view, why we wouldn't give this a shot. It's not costing the taxpayer any money. It can only benefit the council, the city, other businesses and locations. So why not? And we'll follow this story, and especially if you're sort of so heavily involved in it. Whenever there's news, bring it to us.
I will just say one very quick thing as well. We do believe that there might that the Netflix show Slow Horses may be filming soon at the Lido. We have heard it, so I'm going to put it out there. I can't say it 100%, but it's 99%. So watch this space.
Okay, we are going to talk more about the Lido soon, and the fact that it's not going to be mothballed, but we need to really push the message of use it or lose it. We'll come on to that shortly. Let's have a quick moment on food waste. Why did you want to discuss food waste in this episode? Have you got numbers? Have you got stats? Because arguments about we should all recycle better are always, I think, more powerful when there's actual stats.
Yes, I do have stats. As you said, it's a campaign essentially for people. They're grey food caddies that not all of us do. A lot of us just tend to chuck our food waste into the black bags. And we shouldn't be doing it. I mean, we're all guilty of it sometimes. But in actual fact, it is quite costly. And Councillor Angus Ellis, who is the City Council's Cabinet Member for Environment and Transport, has said that we need to be sort of increasing the awareness of the importance of disposing of food waste properly. 27% of waste in black refuse bins is food waste, and it costs the council £870,000 a year to dispose of this. Wow. And it's a lot, isn't it? Of that doesn't need to be done. Now, I don't mean to be too pious, but everyone does it. You chuck the odd potato peel or orange peel or something that could be going into the food waste into your black bin. Everyone does it. I try and use my composter, to be honest. I'm sure there's other people, and it's worth finding out what goes where, because obviously putting things in the wrong place is also costly as well. Putting things into recycling that aren't recyclable, etc., etc. But leftover plates, scrapings, fruit and vegetable peelings, coffee grounds, tea bags, you can get rid of all these things in your food waste bin. And apparently by recycling just 6 tea bags in your food waste caddy, you can generate enough electricity to boil the kettle for your next cup of tea.
There is such a strong argument, isn't there, for all of us to be a lot more mindful about our recycling, and especially when it comes to food. I mean, those stats are frightening, how much money gets wasted. The thing that strikes me is people are quite lazy. People finish their dinner and they've left half of it. They just scrape it straight in the bin. It goes in the black bin. And how can we educate people? How can we encourage people How can we incentivise people to be more mindful of their food recycling?
It's a tricky one. It is a tricky one because you can tell people until you're blue in the face or grey in the face, if you like, that they need to be putting their waste in the right place. I mean, we're in a way, we're sort of lucky in Peterborough that we only have 4 bins, whereas there are other local authorities that have 6 or 8 or 10 or whatever it is. You know, multiple ones, different ones for glass. I think you have to make it a habit. There's almost like no incentive for it, and I guess what you would say is, what could that £870,000 be spent on? So maybe that is a campaign in itself. Maybe if you save this money here, it could be spent on this. Maybe we need to go to different cultures, different languages to do it. Maybe it's different ages, because there are a lot of people who are older who were just used to one bin and still chuck everything in one bin. I don't want to point the fingers at anybody, because you know it's different. Sometimes you just cannot be bothered and you just scrape it into the wrong bin. But all we can do, all the council can do, is try and tell people this is the way to do it. We send out leaflets quite regularly detailing glass goes in here, or plastic goes in here, this plastic there, this goes there. That's all we can do and tell people.
So I would sort of go one step further. Well, I kind of agree to everything you just said.
Yep.
So you read the quote from Angus Ellis, who is the councillor for this, isn't he? The Peterborough City Council's Cabinet Member for Environment and Transport. And this is his quote: "By increasing awareness of the importance of food waste recycling and the impact it has on the environment, we can achieve many notable benefits, such as repurposing more waste for renewable energy and helping the council to fund vital services." And that last bit, when we look at the lack of money to fund vital services, this, I guess, falls into the whole consultation conversation, doesn't it? What can the council do to balance the budget a bit easier? So if we as residents can all recycle way better, it can help save the council money and therefore help fund vital services for things that we want to fund.
And the council gets a lot of flack for the way it spends money, and sometimes, you know, justifiably, some people would say. But there are also times when we can play our part in that, and we can help save the council money. I don't know how many refuse collectors or engineers or people working in social care £870,000 could fund. But you can imagine it's quite a lot.
If you're given £870,000 extra funding, you can spend that brilliantly to help an awful lot of people. And this other stat, 27% of waste in black bins is food waste. 27%.
Yeah, more than a quarter.
Must do better.
Must
do better. Come on, let's start trying to all think about it and think of ways to tell others about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's
like personal responsibility should kick in here.
I think so. I don't think people like the grey bins very much a lot of the time because they smell a bit, don't they? The food waste and stuff. But they're easy. You can easily get the food bags to go into them. And you're doing your little part without actually really having to do anything. All you need to do is separate out your food, and virtually any food can go in there. Yeah. So, let's do it.
Okay. Still to come, we've got our guest, who is Stephen Pettican from the Light Project Peterborough. We're going to talk about rough sleepers and homelessness in the city, and I'm really looking forward to speaking to Steve. Now, before we welcome our guest for this podcast, we are going to look at some comments that we have received, and there's a variety of different subjects that people have been commenting on, including AEPG, Asset Earning Power Group, who of course are the land promoters for the East of England Showground. They've put in 2 outline planning permissions that have both been approved, so we can expect up to 1,500 new homes and the leisure developments on the site of the showground, and we've been discussing that on the podcast. What kind of comments has that been receiving?
So this video went on YouTube, and Mike the Bloodthirsty said, "So it's either or now. We can't have culture or leisure because we need houses. What a lame, pathetic argument for the destruction of the Speedway or showground," referring of course to the planning meeting itself, when obviously that site, showground now, it will have homes, it will have a leisure development built on there, amongst other things like hotels and a school as well. But it will mean the end of the Speedway. And of course, Speedway hasn't run there for many years anyway, or several years, I should say, not many years. I get what Mike is saying there, that it maybe in some ways that is the way it was in that meeting. We were looking at a sort of binary decision, and no conditions could have been imposed, perhaps. And to say that we will still have leisure on that site. We don't know what it will look like yet. We know that there will be sports. We know that there will be paddleball and things like that. Pickleball, I should say. I'm mixing paddle and pickleball there. And many other things as well. But actually what that will look like, we don't know, because, of course, it was only outline planning permission that was granted for these two slices of land. So a lame, pathetic argument for the destruction of the Speedway Showground. It was a pretty fractious meeting. In fact, both meetings, both the one we've just had and the one back towards the end of 2024, they were quite fractious. Maybe the Speedway can come back. Maybe we'll find another site. As yet, we haven't heard anything.
I think the more you dig into this, the more support I want to try and give the Speedway, because the Speedway threw all their ducks in one basket. Is that the right phrase? And we're hoping that somehow or other they will be allowed to keep racing at the showground.
Yep.
That is over.
Yeah.
And I think that the people who are hoping to bring Speedway back need to take a bit of a reality check on that,
Yeah.
swallow the pill, if you like, and look for an alternative, because I'm sure there will be alternative sites out there. If the demand for Speedway is there in the way that they were telling us it's there in the last couple of years, I've got so much time for people who love Speedway. The heritage of that sport in this city is enormous.
53 years.
Just because it can't happen on the site of the showground, which is now being developed, surely there will be an alternative option for that sport. And I really hope that the people behind the Speedway in Peterborough, the consortium, can actually go out there and try and find support and help for an alternative location.
I hope so. I guess from their point of view, then who knows? They may have investigated several sites, but they didn't want to give that impression that they had found another site, because it might tip the balance against them. So
you're speculating.
I'm purely.
You are speculating.
I am speculating. I'm a journalist.
Let's move on. Let's move on.
Let's move on.
Lots of comments. So the cathedral, the Peterborough Cathedral. In our last podcast, we talked about this massive, I suppose, crisis campaign that they put out. The cathedral needs to raise an awful lot of money, £300,000 by the end of March. And if it doesn't raise that money, well, there's potentially quite serious consequences or ramifications. Maybe the cathedral will become a part-time cathedral for our city, which I think most people would agree would be just awful. Last we heard of the £300,000 target, they were over the £100,000 mark, which is just wonderful. But we had someone called Vicky commenting, well, something I'm not sure I agree with.
Vicky Clark, it's a beautiful building, but maybe the £2 million would be better going towards homelessness and businesses.
What £2 million is she talking about?
The £2 million that it costs per year to run the cathedral.
So Vicky's saying that we shouldn't have a cathedral. Don't spend that £2 million that the cathedral as a charity needs to raise to pay for itself. I don't understand what Vicky's saying.
I think what she's saying is that we have to sort of pick our battles almost, or pick our things to spend money towards, I guess. Yeah. And in an ideal world, obviously, we would have both. We would £2 million to help the cathedral, and we would have £2 million to help, investment and to help the homeless. What we will speak, obviously, when we speak to our guest in a few minutes' time, we will raise that with him about whether people have spoken to them about, choosing to help themselves as opposed to helping charities.
Okay, well, we'll come on to that. Last few messages. I want to speak through these because then we can get our guest on. So when we had Faz on, our taxi driver guest from last time round, goodness me, we were filming clips of Faz as he was talking about his work with Gold Star Taxis, trying to find more female taxi drivers in the city. And when you put clips of Faz on TikTok, how well did they do?
One clip alone where he was comparing being a normal taxi driver, if you like, to an Uber driver, had 23,000 views on its own, which is just bonkers, and comments from really across the world, some in favour of the more traditional taxi service, others extolling the virtues of Uber. For example, Al Hazali. Every single phone left in my car as an Uber driver was returned to the customer. It's very easy for the customer to call Uber, because what Faz was saying was, if you have an Uber ride and you leave your mobile phone in the car, how do you get it back? And the thing is, a lot of people have said, well, you just get in touch with Uber and they'll bring it back. Well, but if your mobile phone is in the car, then you might not be able to have a way of getting in touch with Uber in the first place, mightn't you? So I see what he was saying.
Let me just come in, otherwise it should be all you. Look,
mate, that's what it should be. Yeah.
Just trying to flip flop these a little bit, and so I've got an edit point. Meanwhile, at Billy001 said Uber is worldwide, so must be doing something right. I mean, that's a good point to make, isn't it? And then what does at YNWA say?
Yeah, you'll never walk alone. Does Uber offer free collection and delivery of shopping, prescriptions and essentials for senior citizens in the cold weather like Gold Star does?
Sticking up for Gold Star.
Yeah, exactly. Nice. Yeah. And Ikra Yashin, 30, she's a previous Peterborough City Councillor. If my mobile phone was left behind in an Uber, I'd still be able to access my Uber account from another device and search my past trips. Uber provides the registration number of the vehicle that is picking you up. And those are just 4 comments from
loads
70 or 80. I love it that we got people listening and picking up their phone and saying, do you know what, I'm gonna have my say on this. On TikTok, Peterborough Podcast on TikTok.
A big thank you to everyone that has sent comments in, and yeah, you can comment via TikTok. Just search for Peterborough Podcast.